Hello, everyone. My name is Tina from Quantum Healing with Tina. I'm a BQH practitioner, spirit releasement therapist, and intuitive empath. And today we're here with my beautiful friend and colleague, Nina. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. I am Nina Rafaela Morocco from Rafaela Soul Sessions. I'm also a Beyond Quantum Healing practitioner from Scotland in the UK. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your lovely show.
Yay. I'm so happy you're here. And today we're going to talk about memorable session stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few.
Do you have any that come to mind?
Mm. I had a beautiful one recently. In fact, a lot of my sessions recently have been really quite amazingly profound, and I don't know if it's connected to the energies and the information that is all coming through right now at this time. Sorry,
Yeah, your audio is going in and out.
um, or if it's I'm not sure what it is, but the information that is coming through these sessions and the beings and all of the stuff that is happening in these sessions is just amazing. But yeah, I had one recently where this client, she immediately went to this place where these fairy beings were. And I was like, this is really interesting. I just had fairies come up in another session recently. So I was like, this is good. And they were talking about this, these amazing colors and this iridescent light and this, how this light dances upon water. And they were there in that light. When we see the light that dances on water, that is their joy, and it's it's them in that light that we're seeing, that joy that they express. And there was this really powerful message that we needed to just stop being so just like she described it, like the being who was talking to her when I asked the question about what are humans doing right now, what is happening with humanity. She said this being, this amazing fairy type being, just kind of like his whole demeanor, just everything melted, and he was like dour and down, and like and the message was just like, you have to stop. Humans just have to stop what you're doing. And it was like, okay. But then she went on to have this other aspect of the session where she was on a train and they were traveling to indigenous territory, and they were going to take something from these people. So we traveled to this place, and by this time we got there, all of the people on the train with this person that was traveling here, they had all died. They were all in black hats, and they had all died. And
Wow.
this person was the only one wearing a white hat. And this person was going to the indigenous territory supposedly to take this object, but they got there and they were around this campfire with this woman, this indigenous woman, and she, she said she saw this object, this thing they were supposed to take, and she was like, I can't take that. That is the most incredibly powerful, multi-dimensional star tetrahedron object. It is the most powerful thing in existence. I can't possibly steal that. I can't take that. That needs to stay here. It needs to be with people who know about it and what it is. And that. So we went on further and tried to figure out what this was. Seemingly, this technology, intelligence object, this had been used for civilizations, both civilizations on and off planet. This was the most powerful technology in the universe. It had been used for millennia, and it was used by civilizations on this planet for a long, long time before it was switched off. And then it was switched off, and we lost how to use it. But like Lemuria, they had it. Atlantis, they had this object, and apparently this object has been seated in the hearts of many people, and it can be reactivated again. But yeah, that was a really fascinating one.
Wow. So was it a star tetrahedron? With like a Merkaba, right? That's the
That's
same?
what it sounded like. Um, it was so intricate and detailed. It was very, very hard for my client to even describe it. It was both a multi-dimensional star tetrahedron, and it was an intelligence. It was a means of travel. It was so many different things, all encompassed in this one really, really powerful thing. She also said it may well have been crystal. She said that after the session as well. She said it may well have been crystal.
Wow. That reminds me of a session I had, and it's funny, I was just drawn back to that session last night.
Of course.
Of course. Um, where my client she was in life, like in life between lives. Like she was on the other side, seeing her life review, talking with her guide. Her guide's name was Grace. And she was just communicating back to me what she was seeing. And a lot of the things, she had no idea what this guide was talking about. And one of them was this object, or this, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, you did a better job than me, but she couldn't even put words to it. And I think it may be similar, or not, maybe even the same as what you're talking about, because she didn't have the words to describe it back to me. And then I had another client who talked about something called the dodecahedron.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's similar to that kind of object. And she said something about them being on Earth, around Earth, and somehow she was supposed to activate them or something like that. But a lot of them, she said, were tied off. Like they had like a string in the middle and they were tied off, like they were shut down on Earth all this time when they're supposed to be activated, like you said. And she also said, well, that was actually, she got that information in a meditation before her session. And then in her session, she was speaking with the Earth, and the Earth said that is within each of us, within our hearts.
Whoa. That sounds similar.
Yeah.
It's amazing the waves of information that come through our sessions, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah.
And like you said, like sometimes we don't even realize until we've spoken about it, and then you think about it for a while and you go, wait a minute, in a session was something really similar. It's fascinating how that happens.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And then also in that session, which I re-listened to like a 15-minute clip that I posted on my YouTube last night, and she talks about, this was in, I think, February. And she was talking about, in her own words, the guide was speaking to her and she was relaying it to me. And she said, all of the bad needs to come to the surface right now because it needs to be looked at and then healed. And that's what's happening now. And this was back in February, really before anything was going on. Like before we were fully in it, you know?
Yeah.
But she talked about that, and the guide was kind of giving her glimpses into the future. And she said in 5 years, we'll be speaking telepathically. And she also mentioned, because Jen, the client in her mind, was thinking about flying cars. And the guide answered her without her even like saying the question. And she's like, oh yeah, that'll be here in about 10 years. But what I thought was interesting was she talked about the split that's happening now. And she said that, you know, it's not a physical split, it's a split in consciousness. And those of us with a higher awareness, it will be like we're only connecting with and joining together with those people in our that have our own awareness, our like awareness, and those the other people that aren't as evolved in their consciousness will be like we're just kind of passing them by, like we're still here on the earth with them, of course, like we're not going anywhere, but it'll just be like we're interacting but not interacting, you know, like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm gonna like transcribe that session, I think, because there was a lot of really good information that came through. And it was so much that she was having a hard time even explaining what the guide was saying because she didn't understand. Like the guide was talking about the grid, like the grid on the earth, and she's like, I don't know what she's talking about. It was so funny. I'm like, is she talking about the earth grid? And she's like, yeah, I think maybe, I think so. But she's like, you're all a grid. And I'm like, okay. I don't know what she was seeing or what the guide was saying to her. It wasn't quite clear,
Yeah.
but it was really interesting nonetheless. That
Yeah.
was an interesting session. Yeah.
I love all these sessions that bring up information about the heart and how important that is. And I think it's such an important thing right now for humans to begin to understand the power of what's in the heart. I mean, I've had sessions where we've talked about the power of our hearts being able to activate pyramids. I've had stuff that has there's just been so much information about the heart and our connection to the divine being through the heart. And obviously that's, you know, how we start our sessions. This we come into heart and mind coherence, and it's through the heart that we have these like amazing experiences. But a session I had not very long ago, or I facilitated not long ago, I think it was last weekend, she was talking about how people need to feel the pain right now, because the pain is what opens people to their hearts. That's what open people's hearts, is what brings people back to their heart. And it's pain and suffering and trauma that really brings people back to their I mean, I know it definitely was for me. It definitely was for my sort of last stint of my awakening before I did this work. Was you know, relentless trauma for an extended period of time that really brought me into the heart of what I needed to be doing in this world. And I think that kind of flows out to a lot of the information that comes through our sessions about, you know, this time on earth is needing to happen right now. On a higher perspective, it's needing, this is all needing to happen right now, because humans are so out of alignment with what's who and what they truly are, why they're here, and how powerful they are. And that's why we're having to dig up all this stuff so we can look at it and actually shine light upon the darkest parts of what it means to be human and what humans have been doing for so long,
Yeah.
and bring people back to their own light and the power that their own light has.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a really fascinating time. It's such a fascinating time for sessions, and I think that's what made us want to come on because like we were both talking about, you know, how powerful these sessions are becoming at the moment, and just the
Yeah.
incredible information that's coming through, so
Yeah.
in line with what we are feeling as practitioners, but also just as humans going through the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were speaking about the fairies, and they were just like, stop, like just stop. It reminded me of a session I had done with Karen and a fairy. I met with a fairy in Lemuria, and we asked the same kind of questions. And she pretty much was saying the same thing,
Yeah.
like, stop, you know? You guys really need to get it together. Stop being lazy. Start standing up for yourself. Start speaking your truth. Start connecting with your heart and recognizing your own truth, using your own discernment, and understanding the bigger picture of what's happening now, and that this all does need to come to light, because all of this that we're seeing now has just been hiding in the darkness. It's been there all along. It's not anything new. It's just rising to the surface to be seen now. And that's a good thing, because we can't change what we don't see. And so even though it's super hard to look at these things, these super painful and traumatic things, they need to be looked at.
Yeah.
Because if not, they just continue to fester in the darkness and go on and on and on and on. But this is the shift. This is the big shift. This is uprooting all of that trauma that we hold as a collective and looking at the pain and being able to transmute that and stand in our power and understand how powerful we are, because we've just given it all away to people. We've
Yeah.
given it to our governments and the systems and religions and all of it. We've just handed over our power, and we've done that so much that we've forgotten how to think for ourselves, to critically think. And we wait for someone to tell us what to do,
Yeah.
instead of taking that power into our own hands and doing it. We're just always waiting for someone to tell us, what do we do now? Oh, there's a virus, what do we do?
Yeah.
And and these people in control take advantage of that. So it's like a collective rising, of humanity, really. And they were like, you need to really come into your power and understand who you are as sovereign beings. Like, you
Yeah.
don't need this. You don't need to be controlled like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the fairies have really powerful messages.
They do. They do. They're not all just, fairy dust and sprinkles. They've got some power going on there in that shiny iridescent light. They're powerful beings. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you say, it's like that apathy, that kind of passing the buck. Like, it's not, we can't do anything about it. We're just the general public. It's like that's the attitude that has got us where we are.
Yeah.
Thinking that these people in government are the ones that they're going to sort everything out for us. That's the issue. Is
Mm-hmm.
that we've put the power onto them and forgotten our own. And yeah, there's a wonderful mix of what we're seeing in the world, what's unfolding in the world, and knitted beautifully with the information that comes through in these sessions, and it's very affirming as a practitioner to, a lot of this work, we can't help but develop our intuition and our knowing, and there comes a point with all of this when we just what we think is happening just turns into a knowing, and we stop questioning ourselves, and we stop questioning our ability to see the truth, and we just know, and I think that's part of our light worker activating there. We just know, and that's always highlighted by the beautiful messages that come through these sessions. And I'm trying to think of more information. It feels just like a lovely layer, like all the information that's coming through right now just feels like another lovely layer that's kind of hugging us through this time. That, I mean, yeah, it's
I had a really cool session the other day. And I swear every single session I have is so unique. Like they really never follow the standard way they're supposed to go, like ever. But this one was really different. And she didn't come with any questions, which is, I've heard other practitioners say that clients are coming now less and less with a bunch of questions.
yeah.
And this was the first time I had one without any questions at all. And she was amazing, beautiful, beautiful soul, and experienced a lot of trauma in her life, abusive relationships, abusive childhood leading into abusive relationships, with men. And she was just at a point where she was just done with all of it. And she just wanted to start over and not repeat those patterns anymore, and really have like a rebirth. And so she didn't have any questions. She just wanted to see where it would go. She was really open to everything. I talked to her a lot about really trusting herself and the information she was getting. So, when we landed, the first thing she said was, "I'm awake." And I'm like, does that mean like you think you're not under? I didn't say that, but that's what my mind was like. Wait, what's going on here? And we continued on, and she briefly saw a life. I was trying to figure out what was happening because she was already talking in third person. So I knew there was something else going on. And then I realized that we were talking to her angels. She had this legion of angels with her. And as we were talking and trying to understand what was happening, her ego would come in, and the angel would say, "Oh, her body's tensing up. She doesn't believe this." And so I would have to talk her down and relax her again, and then we would pick up again and start talking to the angels again. But basically, the angels scooped out what they said was like peanut butter in her heart and throat and replaced it with a diamond. And they said she has diamonds raining down on her from source. So I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. I'm just going to allow her to sit in this energy. I'm not going to try to it's like pulling teeth, with somebody who's really that deep. So I just allowed her to sit in the energy. And then we actually connected with straight to source. And she said she was connected to source by like a silver chain. She told me after the session, she saw herself going up with the silver chain and connecting it with source. So then she was directly connected. And so when source came in, it was just so much love. It was just love from the angels, love from source. And she was still popping in saying, she didn't believe kind of, but I have to talk her back down. And she actually made it through that session without like waking up or without her ego interfering fully, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And so I started asking questions to source about her healing, and all source said was she's healed. I'm like, great. So then we don't have to do anything? No, she's healed. I'm like, okay. Okay.
That's that.
That's that. It was only like an hour long, but it was so incredibly beautiful for someone who really was struggling to believe any of that, to have that experience of being there. And afterwards she told me she saw like a legion of angels. And like she was seeing a lot more than she was telling me because she was so deep.
Yeah.
She couldn't really speak it. So she had an amazing experience just being in the presence of those angels and connected directly to source and being healed like that. And I didn't even need to do anything, which was great. But, the human part of us is like feeling like we still need to do something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just for that healing, and it was beautiful. And then she messaged me and said, she's had all these opportunities come up for her since the session. She feels super light. She's not eating junk food. She quit smoking. Just amazing results. And she was so excited and appreciative. So yeah, that was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love those really, really quick sessions. The ones
Yeah.
that are just in and out, and there's no messing around, there's no skirting around different lifetimes. We just get straight to the heart of the issue. I've had a couple of those recently, and they're just like, it's unbelievable how deep people can go so quickly. I had one just last weekend where my client went straight to the cosmos and was the cosmos and brought forward this beautiful message from the cosmos's perspective of humanity. And yeah, it was just incredible. And I had another session recently. Both sessions were only about 2 hours. They were so deep and so quick, and yeah, we got everything done, and then that was it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's happening more and more now, because after that I had a surrogate Wednesday night, I think it was. And again, we didn't see any past lives.
Yeah.
We went directly in for the healing. But the interesting thing was Dolores was there again this time. And because I'm like, okay, maybe we need to do something more than just the healing. Again, my humanness is like ridiculous. So I'm like, maybe we should just travel to see, because it was a daughter-in-law that requested the surrogate for her mother-in-law. So I'm like, let's just see what their past lives together are like.
Yeah.
So we started to drift and float, and Karen ends up on a bench next to Dolores, and Dolores has a book, and the book is of their lives together. And she's like, you don't need to travel to the past lives. Let's just flip through this book. So that's what we did. That's all we did. We didn't even have to travel anywhere. She showed us like they had a lot of mother-daughter caretaker kind of lives, but there was always so much love between them. And yeah, no traveling. It was just another really quick one. I think it was only an hour again.
And it's interesting with these quick sessions, and also you were talking about clients not coming with questions. It's like almost the experiences themselves are what is inducing the healing.
Mm-hmm.
The it's almost as if sometimes the question portions of the sessions are obsolete because the answers are given throughout the experiences that unfold. Really, the questions are just confirmation of what we've just experienced. And it's our humanness, I guess, that needs the answers to the questions. I had that same session I had where my client went to the cosmos. Her team, her channel that opened up to speak to us, they were like the answers aren't necessary. The questions aren't necessary and the answers aren't necessary. And I was sitting and going, well, can we ask them anyway? just it's like, yeah, we know the questions are really human, but we are humans, so can we just have the answers to them anyway? But yeah, it's interesting the way these sessions are kind of naturally evolving themselves, like when like you or I or other practitioners come together and we notice these, I loathe to use the word trends, but these similarities that are kind of happening with sessions at the moment. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Well, they are kind of trends. I mean, and it's amazing how, two people like you and I are separate people and we have separate clients and they're all from different parts of the world and they're having similar experiences.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I know. I know.
It's so cool. And that's why I love this work so much. One of the very first session, the very first session I ever did as a practitioner was on Karen, of course, because she's my practice partner. And it was amazing because she went directly back to Sirius. She's a star seed, and she was pretty deep for that. And just the love, God.
Doggy's barking.
Sorry. Hold on.
Brilliant. That was great.
Yeah. There's a delivery man. All right. I think we're good. Okay. So yeah, she, as a starseed, she was taken back to Sirius to see where she came from. And the love she experienced was so overwhelming that she felt like she was going to leave her body. Like her body couldn't even handle that amount of love because the vibration of it was so high and we're so dense down here that it was like overtaking her body. And that was the first time, that was the first time I had to ask someone to step back from hold on, pause for a minute.
It's okay, go ahead.
Do you want to pause?
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
Sorry about that interruption. So what I was saying was she got to meet her family again, her parents, her guides, and she was in this castle and looking down and all of these beings were gathered to welcome her home. And it was so beautiful. And she learned in that session that they had all given her kind of implanted her with memories, that she would somehow remember where she was from. And it's amazing that a human actually can wake up and remember, to be honest, because we are so dense down here. So they really did a good job, like, assisting her in remembering. And they also spoke about this, like, virtual reality kind of thing that she went through to learn about the human experience without actually being down here, but to kind of like prepare her for being here,
Yeah.
because they come from such a high dimension that they really needed to see through the eyes of a human what it was like and to feel those emotions. So we had seen another life that she lived, but it wasn't her life. She was seeing it through the eyes of that human that was living that life and experiencing it too. So I thought that was really interesting.
Almost like like
Yeah,
imprints of lives. Yeah, I also
yeah.
think it's really interesting, like um, these higher vibrational beings having to descend their level of consciousness to be able to handle being here. I always find that concept really interesting. I had a session recently where I went into trance, and I visited part of Orion where I was an amphibian being, which was really interesting because I've also had a client who's had a similar experience. And this place was just all about frequency and vibration and sound. And it was just like so beautiful. These like enormous lily pads that could fit like 4 or 5 human-sized people on them. Like, and they would all sit on these, and it was all about frequency and sound. And some of them would just work on the planet and the beings on the planet and the plants, and they'd communicate with and they'd figure out what parts of the planet needed to be assisted and how they could retune everything and make everything work correctly. And some of them were capable of working beyond that, and they were able to help other planets, other dimensions, other parts of the universe through sound and frequency. Um,
Wow.
it
That
was,
must be why you're so drawn to sound healing.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, I think that's what this confirmation was, of my natural love for music and sound.
Music, yeah.
Um, and there was this incredible part, and it really didn't really show me much else other than these two aspects of how they came into being in those lifetimes, that in those amphibian beings, how they were born and how they left, how they died. And the whole process was just so incredibly beautiful. And they would begin by um, the couple would start creating sounds, and they would create a song together through the vibrations and the noises that they could make. And this song would come to them, and then they would channel it. And this would be the soul song of the creation that they were making, the baby, the creation. Um, and the parents would sing it first, and then the community would sing it as well. And it was this whole birthing process with that collective intention to bring this being into being would be what made the intention into matter, basically, and
Wow.
starting the child. Um, and when they decided they were going to leave, when they decided they were going to pass on, and it was very much a decision that they had done enough in this particular lifetime, they would um, they would begin to hear their soul song again, and they would very faintly hear it at first, and then it would get louder and louder and louder and louder until everyone could hear it. And everyone would also create this sound. And this sound was what assisted the being in releasing its soul from the physical form. So there was this, and it was a beautiful ceremonial type celebration and rejoicing of um, not just the life that they lived, but the abilities that they had beyond the life, that they were still going to be able to interact with their family and the beings that they worked with, and but they were going to be able to do that from a much more expanded level. Um, and it was just so beautiful, and it was so different from what we perceive and experience with birth and death here. It was such a contrast to what we experience, but so incredibly beautiful and touching. And this, it was almost as if the soul was being called back. It was your soul song was calling you home, and that was just something really beautiful. So
That is really beautiful.
it was
Wow.
it was an amazing session, and it was really lovely as well because I had facilitated something almost similar to that, but also very different. It was like my perspective on that one, or my soul's perspective on that one. So yeah, it was lovely. It was,
Yeah.
and
Well, you guys must be like soul family then. You think?
yeah, I think so. I think we must be. Yeah, I think we must be. Well, we all are, aren't we? Everyone who does this work, everybody that we come into contact with about this work, we're all connected in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just awesome to be able to see that so clearly through a session, how you're connected with someone, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. And she's actually she's a past life regression therapist. Um, so she does similar work too. So it was really nice to see that aspect. And she's also assisted me with my love for sound healing and the bowls and all that stuff as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
wow.
it's been really a lovely little um, it's just lovely how it all flows together, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah. It's so incredible. It's just never ceases to amaze me. Like I hope that I never get bored of it or just be like, oh yeah, it's just another session, you know.
I know it's it's hard to imagine ever becoming um, tired of this work because it's also fascinating, and just when it's amazing watching new practitioners having their experiences, their first experiences, and watching them blossom and grow. And I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a time where the magic of this work is going to get dull.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Um, oh, so I had um, this surrogate session for a 9-year-old little girl last week, and it was amazing. I mean, this girl is like a rainbow child, crystal child. She's just beautiful. Like I saw a picture of her, and when you look in her eyes, you could just like see the whole universe. Like she's so sensitive and so connected. And she was having a lot of issues with anxiety and these fears about her parents getting old and dying, anxiety about going to school. There was kind of a power struggle there with her mom. So we went in and did the surrogate session, and in the first scene, what we saw was this. There was all these beings in space. They were like, um, well, she was a blonde, had like a spacesuit on, like a silvery tight spacesuit, like iridescent. And there was all these other beings with her, and they were just in space. They weren't on a planet. They were in space, and they were running, and they were doing these like laps around the galaxy, I guess. And but they weren't in our galaxy. They were in another galaxy, and they were running and like picking up the momentum and speed and making this light, and it would loop around like loop down like a lasso coming down into Earth. And so they were creating this light, and as it was coming down, it was coming down into the humans, through our crowns, down into our bodies, down our legs and into Earth, and out of our feet like little vortexes of energy down into Gaia. So it was like we were anchoring that light they were sending down into Gaia. And Karen saw like us kind of like zipped open, like the people that are more conscious of what's happening. We were like unzipped, and our hearts were just like beaming out this light to the rest of the people on Earth. And I just thought that was so incredibly beautiful. And so we asked about why we saw that, and they said that this 9-year-old little girl is working on all these dimensions, all these other dimensions. Like she's this multi-dimensional being, doing work in her sleep, in her even in her waking state. But she's so sensitive that she's getting overwhelmed by that, plus all the energy she's feeling. So that's what can cause some of these emotional outbursts that seemingly come out of nowhere. It's just, she's really feeling all of this energy. So that was really interesting, and it explained some of what's going on in the collective too. And then we saw a life where she was a gypsy, like a gypsy herbalist, really like earth mama kind of life. They played in the mud, and the earth healed them, and she used all her herbs and crystals to help heal the people in the village. So she's definitely a healer in this life. And we also took her her and her mom, we saw this life that they had together that explained the power struggle. The daughter in this life was a queen. And she had a really traumatic event happen to her. She was actually, as a child, she was super loving and open and connected with the earth and just unconditionally loving and beautiful. And then this tragedy happened where her parents were killed. Her parents, who were the king and queen, were both killed. Her mom raped and killed. And then, so she had to take over as queen. And now she's traumatized. And the people that did that to her parents raped her and traumatized her. And she ends up having a baby from that. And that baby is her mom in this life. So they were like reversed roles.
Wow.
And yeah. And so what we saw was that the queen could never give love to the daughter because of how she was conceived. And she always held that resentment. And as much as she wanted to love her, she just couldn't bring herself to do it. And so she treated her like a slave, pretty much. And she ended up leaving the castle when she was like in her 20s and went off and did her own thing in the woods and lived alone and connected with nature, kind of like her mom did when she was young.
Mm.
So she went off by herself, and then something happened where she was dying, and her mother came to visit her, the queen. Um, and the queen comes to visit, and Karen sees how the queen is like drained of all energy, like she's looking like gray, black and white, and she has a little spot of um, color in her heart, just a little spot left. And the daughter is all colorful, and she has a tiny spot of like gray in her heart.
Mm.
So when I saw that, when she was describing that scene, I saw a yin yang and how they fit together like that, like complementing each other. Um, so after that lifetime, we took them to the healing temple, and Dolores was there, and she was playing the organ, and we asked her, do you have a message for our clients? And she says, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And I'm like, okay. And Karen's like, I love that song. And so we moved on a little bit, and Dolores says, just tell them to hug already. And Karen was like, what? She's like, just tell them to hug already. Because, I was calling in the angels and making a big deal. And Dolores is like, just tell them to hug already. So Karen watches them come together. And as they come together, they kind of like meld. And Dolores says again, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Mm.
And it made sense because they were like making up for each other, in that complementary yin yang kind of way. And they finally were able to come together and heal that. And we were seeing, Karen was seeing rainbow light coming through them, through their channels, all this like refractive rainbow light to heal them. And then Dolores says to Karen, she says, Karen, doesn't it look like a pot of gold? And Karen was like, what? And as soon as she said that, I saw a flash of gold out of the corner of my eye. It was the craziest thing. It was right over here. I'll never forget it. And we were like, what is she talking about? A pot of gold. Like when you think of a pot of gold, you think about a pot of gold with gold coins in it and a little leprechaun sitting on top. But so we ended that scene. They were healed. They were healed just from coming together and hugging. They were healed. But Karen was like, "Oh, we can have the angels seal it." And that's when Dolores's the music she was playing from the organ was coming up with the rainbow music notes and rainbow light, and that's what was coming into their channels. So that sealed their healing. That all they really needed to do was hug. So she's talking about this pot of gold, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I thought she was just joking. So I'm writing up that little story to post about that scene, and I'm looking for a picture of a pot of gold. And the very first picture I come across is linked to the story of a man that actually saw a real pot of gold, which isn't what we think it is. It's this refractive rainbow light like bath, if you've ever seen one. And he said he couldn't even find the words to describe it. He said it was like so just magical. And he was with like his guru. He had some kind of like guru teacher from Asia that was with him. He was picking him up from the airport. And when they ran into this pot of gold, this is what the pot of gold is. It's not a real pot of gold. It's this magical rainbow experience that if you ever get to have one, must be just so divine and magical and incredible. So I realized that that's what Karen was seeing in the session when Dolores asked her, doesn't it look like a pot of gold?
Mm.
Right? And our human minds are thinking pot of gold.
Yeah.
And I realized after that she led me to that specific picture, because I could have picked anything, right? But she led me to that specific picture that was connected to that podcast with the man who had that experience, exactly like Karen saw it in the session. I mean,
Wow. Oh.
just
Amazing.
amazing. Yeah, so amazing.
I love the little nuggets of information that come through for us practitioners as well.
Yes.
And
And
sorry,
go ahead.
sometimes we don't even realize until afterwards, or sometimes we don't know until afterwards that
Right.
information was for us. And sometimes we'll be sitting there and we're like, you'll hear something like the way higher self says something, or the being or whatever it is we're speaking to, and you're like, is that for me? And then later on in the session they'll go, oh yeah, and that bit you thought was for you, that was for you. And you're like, what? Did you know? How do you know?
It's so amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the most amazing thing about that is that the day we before we did the session, the little girl started having shifts in
Wow.
her relationship with her mother. She started going up and asking for hugs. So what we realized was that they were in this power struggle because the daughter in this life is the queen and the mother was the daughter. So the mother is trying to win over the daughter, trying to get her love, trying to get her affection in this life. And the daughter is just like, I don't want anything to do with you, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why they were in this back and forth. It was the exact same dynamic of that lifetime. So that was incredible. And the fact that the daughter started to have shifts and started to want to hang out with her mom and give her hugs and go for walks, and like she's really shifting. It's incredible. The healing is incredible.
Connection. Wow. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing. That sounds really amazing. And
that was amazing.
these starseed children, these little crystal children, they're wonderful little beings. And I mean, I have one myself, so
Yeah.
they are amazing little beings, and it's so fascinating the way the soul changes roles in lifetimes, and so we have to see things from every possible perspective that, I mean, our human minds just would not be able to think up. And
Right.
it's like the stories that unfold from the other incarnations, and the information that's presented is just so clever. The way it's done is like, I would have never thought of that. Why wouldn't? Like, I don't think our humanness is able to really present the information that is presented to us in that way. I don't think we'd be able to come up with it, because it's so creative and so fascinating. And yeah,
Yeah, and even like while when we were going through that life with the queen and the daughter, I knew that was them, but I couldn't fully see the picture of how that was relating until the higher self really explained it to us. And I was like, oh yeah, that one life literally explained every single question the mother had on the list.
yeah,
Just in that one life.
yeah.
It's really cool.
It reminded me of my session I had with you, the one where I went to the other planet, because we were wanting to work on my fear of driving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that lifetime explained everything. more than I think we could have possibly imagined, because the crash that happened in that life on that planet was what led to me having the phobia of driving.
Right, because you had designed that vehicle. You were like an engineer or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you designed that vehicle and you had so much guilt over it crashing
Yeah.
and
Felt
and
feeling responsible for that.
feeling responsible. Yeah. Yeah. That was amazing too. I remember being in that situation and be like, oh, that crash.
Yeah, we were both like, oh. Even I was like, and it was coming out of my mouth. I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, any final stories or words of wisdom?
Just that I hope this is given some of you a little bit of respite for a while. I hope this is taking you out of your everyday lives and showing you a little bit of the world that we get to experience with the sessions that we do. And yeah, just keep going, because there's so much magic out there that we're just scratching the surface of it. No matter how hard everything is, there is always a huge amount of light and a huge amount of magic to be had. That's my parting words.
Oh, beautifully said,
Oh,
Nina.
thank you.
Magic is real.
It is
So real.
so real. Yeah.
Yes, believe in magic. I think they're great final words. Well, thank you for being here with me, Nina, and thank you all for joining us today. We send you so much love and gratitude. We will see you next time. We'll be back.
Yeah, we will.
Bye, Mowgli.
Yeah, he's here.